Okay, welcome back once again. So during this time, in a small break we had taken. So here are three functions we have. These are the function calls. So we are calling the read function here. It might not be very much visible. Let me see if I can make it slightly larger for the camera to capture everything. So probably this would be better. So I'm calling a read function here. I'm passing one argument of double type. Gross is a double, as you can see right there. So this read function, we'll look at the body of the read function in a minute. It returns me a gross amount, which was read in that function. I capture it. Then I pass on this gross amount as an argument to calculate net salary function. And assuming the calculate net salary returns me a net salary calculated by that function, and that function might be very complex, might have dozens of different deductions. In fact, did we do a program where we had multiple deductions? Federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, all those. That could be an example of net salary. So here, assuming that net salary function or calculate net salary function has multiple deductions, and in an HR system, probably it's a very complex system. Probably dozens of lines of calculated fields. And then it returns the net salary, which I captured it. Then I have a specialized report function. This is the function which generates a statement, generates some kind of paycheck. Could be a very specialized function. In fact, in most of our organizations, there's an individual, one or two or more, who are report designers. Their job is just to generate reports or statements. So when you get a statement from Visa, by Bank of America or MasterCard or one of these companies, they have multiple developers. Their job is just to ensure that report is generated, assuming this function is a report generator. We send all the necessary data, and this function will be basically generating the report. In our case, we would like to keep it simple because we don't have enough space and we don't have enough criteria available, but we can actually make it more complex if we have additional data available. All right, so these are the three function calls. So what exactly the functions look like? Here are two functions. Here's my read function as we discussed earlier on the board. Takes one argument, does some...
Why are we passing an argument when you are returning value? In reality, you don't need to pass an argument.
Very good question. So why can't I just have a local variable? I may do so. I can have a local variable. In that case, I don't need to pass it on. But it is quite possible you are using the gross for other functions. Other functions probably also need to display, like print function needs to display what was the original gross amount. So if you have a local gross amount variable declared here, then because you can only return one piece of data, which was the read data which was read, what if somebody does not even have a gross amount? That's one issue. The second issue is, what if you do not want to call the read function whatsoever? You just want to say, I'm going to just, without even calling, what are the original values? But you're absolutely right. It is possible, like in this case.
It's not being used to compute anything in there. So
correct.
Unless you were using it, I don't see a point of having it at all
right.
in there.
Absolutely. I completely agree that the style would be better in this case, that you declare the gross amount locally. So we'll actually do that. Let's actually run the program.
I see what you did.
Yeah. So we'll change it. We'll change it. Just like somebody was asking me, I think you were asking me earlier, I think you were asking me that can I call the calculate from print function? Absolutely. So I'm going to do both ways. I'm going to show you both ways as well. That this gross is returned. Then we call the net salary, calculate net salary, and gross is passed on. Then we have a local variable. This is what Juan is referring over here. That why can't I have a localized variable? Like in this case, net salary is a local variable. The problem with the, if I don't declare the gross in the main, right here, then I have no way to save it. If I want to save the local gross in the main, then I have no ways to save it. I can still use it, and it can return that amount. But what if I want to send that amount to multiple other functions? So then I need some kind of local variable in the main function in order to preserve it, so I can send it to other functions.
Yeah, that one you do need.
Yeah, right. All right, so then we call the print function. Finally, the print function, this is for the camera. This is what it looks like, pretty simple. Print function is pretty simple. All we are doing is passing 3 arguments and we are displaying it. All right, we are ready to test it. If we have no syntax errors, we should be able to hit Control F5. And I see 1 or 2 or 3 errors. It says read not found. Uh-oh. Then it says calculate not found and print not found. Who can tell me what these errors are?
Prototypes are missing.
Yes. So what exactly that means? So it says I have no idea what this thing is. Why it's telling me this error? It's telling me it doesn't understand this language. Doesn't understand what read is. Doesn't understand what calculate is or print is. How so? Meher, what do you think? Why it's telling me that it doesn't know what these things are? Because the compiler, help me make make more meaningful statement. Compiler is telling us what? Compiler is telling me that these things are alien to me. You never told me these things. These were not declared. These were not mentioned to me. Imagine if you do not tell your mom that you are expecting a guest. Somebody knocks on the door, and she might not provide good service in that case, right? I'm trying to be polite here. So, but if you tell her I'm expecting a guest, I might be a few minutes late, then she knows that you're expecting a guest. Here, we never told anything to the compiler about these 3 functions, these 3 guests. We never told anything. So how do we handle this situation? There's one way to handle this situation. I'm going to take this read function, cut it from here, put it above the main function, right here. So I literally, you don't have to do anything, guys. Just watch what I'm doing. I literally cut the read function, put it above the main function. The body of the read is above the main function. I'm going to run my program again. This time I'll get 2 error messages. 2 error messages. Now it's telling me I don't know what calculate is and I don't know what print is. So I say, okay, let's see if we can go back. And this time I'm going to cut these 2 as well. Cut them from here and put them above the main function. So I have all 3 functions right above the main function, as you can see. All 3 functions. By the way, you can minimize these. Here it doesn't give me the option, but you can minimize these. Normally there's a plus or minus symbol. So, but here I have the functions above the main function. I'm going to run my program again, and I run my program, and this time it runs successfully. So something happened. I copied or cut my function bodies and I put above the main function. Now my compiler is saying, oh, that's fine. You can do that. Is that a smart thing to do?
It's probably not.
It's not. Why not?
Should we need a function after this?
Because they get big and it's too much junk in one file.
Okay. So what if I do this? What if I have to call?
Plus, isn't the style usually you want to have the main at the very top?
Yeah.
Kind of like.
So what if I remove this one, put the net, calculate net first, then the read, then the print. Let's see what happens. If I do that, still it runs. If I go back here, take this print, put that one, put it here, and it still runs. So sequence looks like sequence is not an issue. However, let me show you something here. So let's say I want to call the read function, this read function, directly from here. So all I'm saying is that this time I'm interested in calling the read function from the calculate function. Let's see what happens. When I try to call that function, I get an error message that I have no idea what read function is. Why I'm getting this error? Because read function needs to come first before calculate function. Okay, I say I can put this one right here, and I can solve that problem. Now imagine if you have hundreds, if not thousands of functions. And literally you will. So a typical system, like in Ford F-150, I think there are 50 million lines of code. Just in the truck, Ford F-150, because these machines are basically run on software. So when you have a tire pressure issue or other sensors or cameras, everything is controlled by the software. So when you have these literally hundreds of thousands of functions, how do you decide which function needs to reside where? So that's not going to work. That's not practical. And many times you call other functions from other functions. So that's absolutely not going to work. So the fix is that we can place these functions anywhere we would like. I'm going to take them away from here, put them under main, anywhere we would like. But instead, we can copy their headers, put them above the main function, and put the semicolon at the end. Do the same thing for the read, copy the header, put it above, copy the last one, calculate salary, or calculate net, put the semicolon at the end. So this, putting the headers above the main, is like telling the compiler that we might have the bodies of the function, these functions somewhere in the system. Look for the bodies of these functions. So when the compiler sees the header, compiler says, oh, you probably have these functions somewhere. I'll find them. So when the function call is made in the main, it looks for those functions and automatically executes those functions. So these are called prototypes. So these are the prototypes. This is my intention, or this is my way of telling the compiler, do not panic if you see a call being made for the function. Do not panic, do not give me an error message. Instead, look for that function. Now, in the prototype, yeah. So probably just like you have, when we used to talk about file allocation table. So when the directories are made, all these files are made. So the operating system knows how to find these files, how to find these pictures. So probably the compiler has a similar way. It can look for the same location, or we can put it in a different location. I can take these functions, put them in a separate file as well.
As long as they're in the same folder, you said something.
If you have in the same folder, if you have in a different folder, then you have to provide the path that this function resides. So you can actually
take all of those that you created extra and put them in a separate file. How would I connect that to the main?
So chapter 6, where we discuss the files, once we discuss that one, I'll show you that you can actually connect with those files, and in that way, you know how to find those particular CPP files. Right now, when these functions are created, they are part of my same CPP. What if they are separate CPPs? What they reside in different places? So we'll learn. Also, the name of these variables is optional. So if in a prototype, if you want to get rid of the names of the variables, that's perfectly fine. Typically, you will find the prototypes look like this. So if you see something like this, that's perfectly fine. So the name of these variables in the prototype, not in the body of the function, not in the header of the function, just in the prototype, it's optional.
Which I read in the book, it wasn't recommended to do that anyway, because it can be confusing if you have two doubles right there, for example.
Right. So you can put them for your sake, but it's optional. Just wanted to show you that if you see in another place in a textbook, the prototypes do not have the variable names there, it's optional. But if you feel more comfortable leaving the names there, that's fine as well. So now if I run my code, it should run successfully, exactly the way we planned it. We can test it. So let's say I give a full name here. You can type your name. And it failed. My system failed. And that's why you can see it fell through the entire thing very quickly. Who can tell me why it failed? So this is not a syntax error, it's a logical error, or I would say more, not even logic, runtime error. So something happened during the runtime that it failed my program. after I entered my first and last name, it did not ask for the gross salary and did not produce the gross and net salary. As you can see, 0, 0 after my first name. What do you think? What exactly is missing after my first name? My last name is missing. So there's something wrong with, it's not happy with my last name. Do you know why? So the issue is, we probably talked about this one, CN, when you say name, and when you enter the data like this, with a space, this space is a terminator for CN. It terminates the CN, or that value is terminated with a space. So CN does not read anything. So this last name, or letter A, was read as gross amount. Because it was sitting in a buffer, so uppercase A was read in a gross amount, and it failed the system. Because gross amount was a double, and this letter is not a double, and that's why you see the system failed. What if I want to take a full name? I don't care. I just want a full name. What should I do in this case? How do I handle this situation? And I'm referring to my read function here. So it seems like this is not working. And I want the full, not here, sorry. Right here. I want the full name. How do I fix it?
Get line.
Okay, so get line. What is get line? Takes the entire line. Okay, let's try it. So this one is not working. So you want to use get line. Did we use get line in the past?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So you can use something like that. So it's a function. It's a given function, or a predefined function. Let's try our program again. This time I say, here's my first name. And I hit enter. Now it's asking for the gross amount. I say, okay, I have gross amount, 3,500. I hit enter. It's asking for gross amount again. I hit 3546. And how come it's asking for gross amount twice? Did I make a mistake somewhere? Okay. So let's go and take a look. So I must have used gross amount somewhere twice. Oh, because I was trying to show. Yeah, I called it here twice. Yeah, I was trying to show something to answer some question. So that's why it's asking twice. But the gross amount was successful. Let's assume the gross amount is 3,500. So 25, let's keep it simple. So let's say make it 4,000. So 25% of 4,000 is what? So 1/4 of 4,000 is what? 1,000. So hopefully we'll get the net salary, which is 3,000. So again, this is my first name. Let's say Joe Smith. And 4,000. And we get net salary as 3,000. Seems like it's working. You can see the first name, last name, gross amount, and net salary. Now, this happened in the main function. This name was taken in the main function. This was read in the read function. This was calculated in net salary, but this whole thing was displayed in the print function. So the four functions are kind of working together. So you can see main function is reading the first and last name and making all the calls, because main function is a driver function. Gross amount is reading the gross salary, and some other functions, they have their own jobs to do. I'm going to go one step further now. I'm going to show you, which I claimed earlier, that each of these variables, they have their own memory space. So let's actually display the memory space of the gross amount in the main function first. So right here, before I call this function, I'm going to do this. Address. And you can try it on your system as well. Gross in the main. So I'm going to see the address of gross amount. How do I see the address? So there's a very important operator in C++, which is ampersand sign, this AND operator. this ampersand sign allows me to see the memory addresses in C++. So, and this is also called a reference operator. And if I put this reference operator right before the variable name, right here, so if I put it right next to the gross, before the gross amount, I'm saying show me the address of gross where it exists in the main function. I want to see the address of this one. I'm going to copy this line of code, and go to the read function and put it in there, and this one I'll call it read function. And I'll copy this one here again, and this time I'll say show me the net function, or calculate net. So now you can see I'm trying to display the memory address of gross in 3 different locations: in the main, in the read function, as well as in my calculate net function. So I'm trying to see the addresses. Now I made a claim earlier that each function, they have their own localized value, which means they are pointing in a different direction as far as those values are concerned. So when we run this one, so we enter some name here, and here is address of gross in the main. I can see the hexadecimal address. In my case, I just kept it simple. I said just assume it's 1000. Here it is D84 in the main function. And it is different from read function, C5C. As you can see, it's different. So it's the same variable, gross, gross, gross in all 3 places, but it has its own copy. So it's a different memory location or RAM location. So once I enter the value here, now you can see in the net salary, it is, yeah, it is different. Actually, I was first. No, it is the same. Did I put it twice? I was hoping it will be different. And let's go and check. Yeah, it should be different, and strangely enough, it is the same. Yeah, let's try one more time. So here is my name and some value. Okay, so that's kind of strange to me. I was hoping it will be different because the net salary is a separate function, and right now it's showing me the same, and I did not pass as a ampersand sign. So that's kind of strange to me. Let me see what could be the reason. So this pass is a simple pass. That should
Which are the 2 that are getting the same value? Calculate and read?
I'm very surprised. It should be different because it's called random access memory, so it cannot assign the same values every time. Yeah, it is something which is strange to me. But at least I'm partially right, and I'll figure it out why it's showing me the same address in the 3rd function. I was hoping it will be a different function, different value. You can see in the main function it is different. In the read function it is different. And then when I jumped on to the calculate net, it is kind of the same, which I'm very surprised to see that because it is supposed to be different. The reason we want, what if you have too much data? You have thousands of products, thousands of users. When you make all these copies of all these variables, it might take too much space in the memory. That's one issue. The second issue is the efficiency. If you can manipulate the data in the same location, all the functions are focusing on the same location, it is more efficient that way. So how do you do that? You can pass by references. So that's the concept I just want to highlight here, pass by reference. So far we have discussed is pass by value. Pass by value, we just saw in the read function and the main function, they have different locations. if you want to pass by reference, how do I pass by reference? Who can help me? So you will put ampersand sign right here. Ampersand sign right here. And if you put the ampersand sign here, where else do you need to put ampersand sign? In the header of the function. So I go to the read function and put the ampersand sign here as well. By putting this ampersand sign, I'm saying to the read function, this time do not make a copy of that variable which is called gross. Do not make your own copy. You are not localized anymore. I want you to focus where main function was focusing. Point in the same direction. So both functions will look at the same location. Let's verify it. So this time when I run it, and I give some first and last name, now notice that main and read, they're focusing on the same memory location because of the ampersand sign. Because I passed my data by reference or by address. So this time, the gross amount in both locations is exactly the same memory address. So chapter 5 talks about it in more detail, and this spends a lot of time. Now, this actually will become more interesting later on. In fact, we'll be passing few things that we cannot pass by value itself. There are few objects, for example, few function values. You cannot even pass by values because the values do not even exist, especially when we deal with files. We'll be dealing with files pretty soon. So certain things must be passed by addresses because they are not simple data types. They are not simple like 25 or 3000 or 4000. They are more complex data type. So here, now strangely enough, this time the address it is different. It is supposed to be different. It is supposed to be different, but this time the calculated net salary is showing me a different address, and I agree, it is supposed to be different. So these are supposed to be same. This is supposed to be different, unless, again, I hope it doesn't embarrass me this time, unless we go here in the net and we just do the same thing. We say, this time I'm going to pass you the same memory location as well. So when you do that, so let's run it again. So here is the name, same memory addresses in the main and read. So let's give some value here. And this time, all three of them are pointing in the same direction. That was our expecting, that all three will be different in pass by value, and all three will be the same in pass by address or reference. So this is perfectly fine because that was our intention. So, but something is, and by the way, whenever they have the new Visual Studio, there's always one or two glitches. I remember when I was younger, I used to make money from Microsoft, $100, $200, because you find glitches and they give you money. I'm not sure they still give you money or not, but I have made a few $100 just finding glitches. So that could be, I don't know, it might be something I'm not aware, but I was kind of surprised to see the same address in read and calculate. I was because these are two separate functions. They have their own localized copy of these variables, and they are supposed to be pointing in a different direction. So this is perfectly fine, that all functions are pointing in the same direction, and the reason is we are doing pass by reference. And you can see pass by reference in the read as well as in the calculate net salary. So you guys are okay with that? Okay. Now, what a couple of things were mentioned I'm going to implement into code. One thing was, do I need to declare gross amount here in the main? Let's comment it out. Let's not declare the gross amount here. Instead, let's declare this gross. And if you don't want to change your program, if you are already comfortable, don't worry about it. You can just follow along. But if you want to change the program, because I'm going to just flip it completely, I'm going to declare the gross amount right here and get rid of this argument completely. So notice that now my read function has no arguments because I have the gross declared locally. Okay? So if it's declared locally, it takes the input from the user, returns that gross. When the gross is returned, so it has a return type, as you can see, it has a return type. So when I come back, Here's my function call, because function doesn't take any arguments. What do I do with this value? Because I have no local variable called gross, it doesn't exist. So what do I do in this case? So if I call like this, which we discussed earlier, that will be a wasteful effort.
Grab that and put it in place of gross.
That's right. So the only choice I have is take this one, put it here. That's a choice. Now let's talk about this one for a second. So now this read function has a local copy of gross. It's going to return the gross back to me. I'll immediately pass it on to calculate net salary, which we earlier mentioned right here, number 3. Pass it on to another function. Now it's still telling me there's an issue, and the issue is my prototype doesn't match. So we resolve that issue. So hopefully that will work. Yeah. So it doesn't know what the gross is. Absolutely. So we can actually take this one and just put it right there.
No, you can't. It's going to run read twice that way.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So that's one of the issues.
That's why you want to declare your variable.
Yeah. Unless you say, you know what, we don't even care about gross anymore. So we will. So you can see that that's why we wanted to have a local copy of that variable. And I'm going to get rid of one of these. Okay. And we'll come back and we'll undo a few times and should be able to come. Still, it's giving me an error message. Let me see. Double read initial value of reference non-constant must be in left value. Let me try to run this one and see what the error is. Undeclared identifier. Okay. Undeclared identifier. Okay, this one is it is returning a double, and we are trying to capture it here. Oh, okay. And
the ampersand goes on the type or on the variable name?
Yeah, so let me resolve this issue, not on the camera because it's just wasting our time.